All right, welcome back to the IOI podcast. Today, I got a new guest on today. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Hi, my name is Tom La Vecchia. I am a podcaster, also known as the Armchair MBA. I'm also the founder of X Factor Media, which is a digital marketing firm here in New Jersey.
Cool, man. How did it all start? How did you get into all these things?
I was in corporate for almost 20 years, and there was a situation where I got laid off. Kind of decided, what should I do? I kind of got a job that I liked, didn't love afterwards. But then I started a digital marketing company. Actually, I started out, I wrote a sales book and was going to do training. And then we're like, I don't know, it's a tough business training. You got to, do speaking, and you got to do talks, and you got to do a lot of free stuff. And like at that point, got a family to feed. So I said, all right, well, people were like, well, I don't want you to speak, but can you do our social media? Because it was good at social media. All right, so we started with social media. And then we started getting some clients. And then people were like, hey, can you do SEO? And I knew we'll get SEO guys, so we started an SEO. So we kind of like started with social media, and then we morphed over to a full service digital marketing firm. And that will be almost 10 years in October.
Damn, that's crazy. It's just, you never really know what can happen, when this time, when you have opportunity for more time and stuff, like you said, you got laid off from a job.
Yep.
That's basically kind of how, I started my own clothing brand. COVID came around, less work hours, so I kind of, figured out stuff that I really wanted to do and pursue, so I can definitely relate to that, but that's cool, so you've been doing your own kind of entrepreneurness, for the last 10 years, so how has that journey been?
Scary. Almost busted out twice, where I had a situation 1 year earlier on. I actually grew too quick, too fast. I didn't, scale correctly. I didn't have the right people on the bus. I had to pay back over 6 figures back to a client because it just everything kind of fell to the wayside. It was a rough time. So that was one time. And then later on, again, having the wrong people on the bus, and just, people just not pulling. I hate to say this, but when you work for an entrepreneur, and I really want people to listen to this part. When you work for an entrepreneur, you work for a smaller firm, you work for a 3-4 person firm. Like when they pay you, this like comes out of our pockets, right? And if it's just a job for you, and you really don't care about it, and you're gonna like underperform, and you're just not gonna work, well, you're hurting them and their family, And I just had some people that really just didn't give a shit. I didn't have the mechanisms and the processes to evaluate quicker. I wish I did. I didn't go with my gut quick enough, and I had the wrong people on the bus. So literally twice, almost went out of business. But again, fast forward almost 10 years, we're still here and we're doing well.
Damn. Yeah, that's crazy. I guess you live and you learn, through that process. And, it's really true. Being your own business owner and stuff, you really get the understanding of all this money is yours, and everything kind of depends on you. So you treat the company as, you have a more, yeah, like a baby, because it's
But Adrian, not just that though. It's not even just like you hire somebody, right? And it's
right.
like, hey, I'm going to do this. All I need you is to do that. Now, if you could go above and beyond, great, right? But then when you don't, I lose the money I gave you, and I lose the opportunity of, because you didn't do what you were supposed to do,
Right.
And now I have to pay double. I'm going to find somebody else, do it myself. And if you did what you were supposed to do, we would have prospered. So it's that like, instead of being here, it's not like we lose this, we're here.
Yeah.
And that gap kills you financially, morally, culturally for the company, and kind of learn the hard way.
Yeah, so like going through training people, and they're like, this ain't really for me. Then you lost all that, with the money and time that you
For
put
them,
in.
it's just another job. They can care less.
Yeah. So how many people you got working for you now?
Right now, we got a team of 4, and then we outsource the rest. We have a team of 4 core team. We have a back end team that is on retainer, but they're not like company people, but they're back end team of 3 or 4 people, and then the rest we use freelancers as we need to.
Damn, that's awesome, man. So how did you apply that to podcasting and stuff? How did that come about?
So I do a few different things. Like I said, I own newtheory.com. It's just a small little blog site. And as things crashed the second time, I had to get rid of all my writers. I just couldn't afford it. So, I was in sales. Again, my book, X Factor Selling System, somewhere around here, was a bestseller. And people will always like, hey, Tom, you know what? I wish I could like be there for one of your conversations when you're selling somebody, or I really want to hear more about how you did this, or hear more about that. So what did I have? I had the spoken word. So I decided to start a podcast, which is a New Theory podcast. Still around 4 years later. Jason Venturelli now leads it. He just picked it up about 6 months ago because my Armchair MBA took off, thank God. I just wanted to have meaningful conversations with people. And that's the content. So the podcast kind of saved newtheory.com and had some great people on it. Gary Vaynerchuk, Jordan Belfort, Johnny A. Light, you know, he's a mobster, but nevertheless changed his life around. A lot of notable people. And in those conversations were meaningful and stuff that I wanted to have anyway. And it doubled back as content for the site. So that's why I got into podcasting, was a salvage newtheory.com.
Right. And, you know, that's what's really cool. You know, like, I like that you talked about that. You know, you want to have meaningful conversations with people, but at the same time, you know, you get all this knowledge and information, all these gems, you know, so you record it, and not even just for yourself, but you get to post it, and all these other people get to listen and watch. And, you know, and then you start getting, you know, a little side business too of podcasting. You know, it's just, it's crazy, you know, how it goes. But, you know, I definitely, that's the end goal with any podcast, I would think, you know, it's to really gain something out of, you know. And I've watched yours.
And there's different strategies. Like the Armchair MBA is more out of passion. I'm not making a ton of money doing it,
right?
But I love doing it. I've got some great guests come on. I'd love to have you on someday. And you know, and you know, I hate to say this, but like, in business, sometimes you don't know what you want to do, but you always want to build, right? And I'm building brick by brick, right? So for me, for like say Armchair MBA, we're closing in on almost 10,000 subs, right? And right now, I'm not focusing as much on monetization. We have a sponsor, JSV Capital, great guy, but I'm not really monetizing nearly as much as I could and should. Why? Because I'm just focusing on building community. Because I really believe once you kind of build your tribe and build your community, then you could always work on monetizing it in a way that's organic and that feels right.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I can tell, you know, from what you do with the podcast and stuff too, is like you try to get the business aspect from anybody that you have on there, you know, because even if it's like the mob stuff, like there's a lot of business that goes into it, and you can gain knowledge from that. And you know, is that kind of like your whole target audience? Is like,
so I'll give you a quick story. So I just had Sam DeBogravano on.
I like that one.
You know, listen, I'm, you know, I try not to judge on the morality, you know, that's up to people's own moral constitution, how they feel. I wanted to have him on. He was on ABC News, on reputable media. And he was at the end of the day, number 2 man in a $500 million a year organization. So that's what I wanted to extract. How did you operate? You worked under one of the most notable gangsters of all time, John Gotti, you know, Sr. And like, I want to know the business aspect. You know, how did you organize your captains? How did you set up meetings and that kind of stuff? So he said something interesting the other day. He goes, focus on the things that you don't know and get people that are good to do that for you. So I also like another Italian American entrepreneur, Ray Dalio. He's an $18 billion guy. He started Bridgewater Associates, you know, one of the most successful men in the world. And I was watching one of his shows, and he said the same thing that Sammy said. Focus on the things that you don't know, and then find the right people to do them for you. So I just found that paradoxical in a way. Like, you had like one Italian American who went the wrong way in life, but was successful in that world. Then you got a guy who was, by conventional means, a billionaire and said the same thing. So that's the kind of stuff that gets my juices flowing. And then I work my best to incorporate it into my own life and hopefully build my own success.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, it's really cool, you know, like how you know, it's it applies from a legitimate and, you know, illegitimate, you know, too, that you can use that skill because it's really just a business skill. You know, it's not just like a criminal skill. You know, I mean, it goes both ways. And you know, that's what's really nice about you know, doing these podcasts is like when you hear these things, you can apply them to your everyday life, you know, your everyday business and your marketing and how you want to run your business and treat your employees, you know. And you know, that's what I really try to gain, you know, out of each podcast is like information, you know, knowledge, you know. And I've heard that, you know, with yours too, is like you said that, you know, that's what you really try to go when you do a podcast with someone, you want to gain something each time, you know, and I agree.
And what I try to do, and I'm not always successful at it, is I try to do two things. One, I'm a little selfish sometimes. I want to know what I want to know from you, right? And a lot of times I get it right. Where people, but number two is what do like the common man or woman think, and what questions do they want to know? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I think my strength is.
Hmm.
I'm not. I'm like a little impatient. I'll interrupt a little bit. I'm not the best at interviewing. I'm getting better at it after 400 of them.
Yeah.
But I really try to like have that meaningful conversation where I'm like, you know what? Here's what I want to know selfishly, and then what do I think my audience wants to know? And for the most part, we've been right.
Yeah, and I like that you have the acknowledgement of that you know what you're doing, that you want to improve on, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like I've watched, I scrolled through the beginning, your very first ones, and you can definitely see the growth in
Ooh,
the
why some of the old ones are rough.
yeah, yeah, no, but I agree. That's how mine are too, But I mean, everything is. I really, as having the entrepreneurness, I mean, you really love to watch something grow. You know what I mean, and watch it grow from the ground up and continue to get better and better each time. And with your interviews too, I mean, you try to ask questions like with that other people haven't asked. Like with Sammy. I mean, that had to have been a really difficult one. I mean, so how
Yeah.
did you kind of maneuver with that?
Well, I was like, okay, what do we, and I got a little crap from his interview. People felt I was like letting him off the hook. There's obviously some controversy around him. Obviously, was involved directly or indirectly with 19 deaths.
Right.
People wanted me to kind of take kind of the moral high road, again, and I was very clear. Number one is my goal was to have a conversation with him that nobody really had. And
Yeah.
on the business aspect, I couldn't find that. So that was number one. The charter and the scope of my channel is the Armchair MBA. MBA is business, and I want to kind of take stuff and extract it and come up with great business concepts for you to use in your life or your personal life. So my goal was to ask questions for him that nobody ever asked. I believe I accomplished that. I got some pushback on some things. The other part too is if you get too controversial with your guests, like if you came to me today and you got like super personal and you got like hey, you this and you're a jerk and that kind of stuff, I'm probably
Yeah.
not going to finish this interview. And if I do, I'm probably not going to come back, right? So I
Yeah.
try to be fair with my guests. One thing I believe I do differently is, and you and I spoke earlier before we started, Johnny A. was kind of a controversial guy. There was people out there that really didn't like him. He's actually a friend of mine. But I had somebody on the next day that was very critical of him because I want people. I don't want to make decisions for people. I want to talk to Adrian, and I want us to have a meaningful conversation, and then people extract from it, and then
Yeah.
say, hey, here's how I think, and here's how I believe. Because who the hell am I to tell you what to do?
Hmm.
And I try to fair balance the best I can on my show.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell with that, with how you run your show. And like, I agree. You don't want to be too. I mean, you gotta know what's too much to ask, and if they want to just move on, that's it. You don't try to keep pushing, because they're gonna get pissed off and want to leave and stuff. Because I've seen interviews and with people that have done that kind of shit, and it's just like, man, that's
Yeah.
then you just ruin the whole time. You waste your time, their time, and it's just a whole loss. You know what I mean? But it's definitely about asking the right questions because there's interviews that you can with big name people, and it's just hard to you have to find stuff that you can't that someone else hasn't asked. It's kind of hard finding that. But you really have to do that unless it's just going to be like the same interview over and over and over. It's just
Right. Yeah,
repetitive.
and I did got a little heavy into the mob genre because
Yeah.
I would do interviews and I would interview like Jordan Belfort or like this
Hmm.
guy Jeff Hoffman who like founded Priceline and some pretty big notable people. And
Yeah.
those interviews did well, don't get me wrong. But if I did like some ex mobster, like the videos were 5 to 10x more. So I'm like, all right, well, I want to be noticed and I want to build a community. So I kind of geared towards that. So now I try to mix it up. I try to do some stuff within the mob genre with the business end of it, but then I also try to do like some straight business stuff, like how to make passive income in 2022,
Yeah, I like them ones.
side hustles, and Andrew, go deep dive. I think you'll like the content.
Yeah, and I really like the other one you did. It was a podcast. It was like, why you should start a YouTube channel, So I mean,
Yeah,
it's
we have
definitely
what Jeff gonna do from Barstool Sports.
yeah.
That was a cool one as well.
Yeah, and see, like you offer great content, for people that are just starting businesses and wanting to dive into it and why they should, and that was a good video. And like I think that the way I think you guys even kind of talked about, like starting a channel and posting your videos like for titles, you can't just put mob interview, you gotta like
Yeah.
hit the topics of, you know, like what you kind of hit on and what you talked about in order for people to actually draw to it and for it to hit the algorithm, if I'm right. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that, you know, I gained something out of that, you know what I mean? And I recently started doing that extra stuff, you know, about a 3 4 months ago, because I realized, you know, this isn't working. And yeah, and I think it helps, you know, it really more of attention getter, you know.
Tell me about Invest Yourself Clothing. So, why did you start it? Tell me a little. I know I hate to take over the interview, but I want to learn a little bit about you too, you know?
Well, basically, you know, 2020 COVID hit, you know, job hours cut. So I started, you know, the clothing brand. You know, I kind of had more time. I was like, what do I really want? You know, and I was just like, well, I kind of want a clothing brand, you know, that I can kind of stand behind and represent. And, you know, friends and family, they liked it, you know. So I was like, okay, I'll get you it. And then from there, you know, it's just like, well, maybe I could start a Facebook, Instagram,
Yeah.
Snapchat, TikTok, all that, you know. And then people actually did like it and, you know, gravitated to it. And then a year later, I ended up starting the podcast, you know, Invest in Yourself podcast. And it just like reaches out to, I've had mob people, business owners, scientists, biologists, you know, just you name it, you know, it's just a different variety of stuff. And
Yeah.
it all goes back to investing in yourself, because anybody can do that. And, you know, it's just, that's basically kind of how I got into it. And the way I found you was I did a mob interview with Bobby Luisi, and I seen you were
Oh,
on his
Bobby
channel.
Luis, he's a good man. He's a personal friend as well.
Yeah, yeah, he's a good dude, you know, and I did one
How did you
with him.
find Bobby?
Oh, well, I had a buddy that actually did an interview with him, and it was maybe
Oh,
a
wow.
month ago, and I was just like, damn, dude, I want to hit him up too, you know, and
Oh
but
yeah.
take the interview in a different direction, you know,
Yeah.
from what he
I gotta
did.
check that out.
Yeah, and it was good, you know. I still got yet to post it. I think in 2 weeks, you know,
Okay.
he's ready to see it, or maybe next week I'm going to put it out there, and he's going to put it on his channel too. But you know, I was going through his content, and I seen you showed up. I was like, damn, well, this guy's kind of cool. Let me hit him up too and see if he's down, and, you know, do some research. And you responded back, you know, almost instantly.
Hey, it's a small world. I try to, and not that. Listen, trust me, I'm nobody, but do get a lot of interview requests. I'm a busy guy, but I really try to help out or go on shows that are smaller. Not that you're not small, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
not that
yeah,
you get what I'm saying. You're starting out, right?
yeah, yeah.
I'm very empathetic towards if somebody's starting out. I want to go on your show because if I can help you a little bit, because it's weird when I started my podcast, there are people that would charge $10,000 an hour for
That's
consulting.
crazy.
But if you asked them to be in your podcast, it was a snap yes. I'm
Yeah,
but hey, I'll roll with it. And I always say this: 95% of people that now remember that I wanted on my show, meaning I had like realistic expectations. I was like, I want to get this person on. 95% of the people that I wanted to get on the show, I was able to get on. Like
yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk and a whole bunch of other people. Perez Hilton was interesting because I kind of liked him. Like just different people that I was able to get, and I was thankful for that. So like I'm like, you know what? If somebody that big comes on my show, if somebody asks me that's a smaller show, you bet your ass I'm gonna go on.
Yeah, that's awesome, you know, and because you know what it's like, you know, to, you know, go through it and try to hit these people up and, you know,
Yep.
really, you know, try to get interviews with them, and they say yes, it's like, holy shit, you know, like when you get that yes, you're like, damn, this is crazy, you know, this is gonna be awesome. You know, I'm gonna meet this person I've been really interested in. And, you know, it's nice doing interviews with other people too. I think I've done one, you know, and it
Yeah.
was my first one. I was like, damn, you know, I really like being interviewed. It's a different experience, you know, because, you know, you know it, you know, you're usually the interviewers, and now you're getting interviewed. It's just different. It's a different feeling. It's cool though.
I'm used to it too.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a little getting used to, I would say, but I mean, I felt like I did all right, you know, when I did it. But kind of back to what you do, I was gonna talk about I think, you know, one of the podcasts I was just watching was with the girl that was getting married to the doctor. And you know, he
Oh,
had a
that was okay. So Benita Alexander was engaged to the super surgeon. He created like this trachea, supposed connections to the Pope and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
A little bit of a watch it called He Lied About Everything and a little bit of a rug pull. But yeah, that was a crazy one.
Yeah, I mean, that's just crazy, you know, how someone can just lie and come up with something like that on the spot, you know, and then come to find out she found out he had like three other families. It's just like, what the fuck?
Insane.
But yeah, I mean, that was another good one I liked, and it's just crazy, you have a different variety of guests, and I really like remember, like I was talking about the John, how do you say his last name?
A-Light.
Yeah, and I really like that one. That was an actual in-person one, so you guys must have been in the area together for that one.
Yeah, so it's funny because uh, we were supposed to do audio. He wanted to do video last minute, so we had to scramble to get a videographer. We met at Kearney, New Jersey, at one of those like kind of shared workspaces. And he's driving, and he sends me a picture of kind of like this back road. He's like, "Tom, what are you trying to whack me?" It was in a really desolate area, which is kind of funny, but it turned out to be a good interview.
That's funny as hell. He seems like a really good dude too. I mean, how do you go about, reaching out to all these people? Do you just actually have connection with knowing them, or do you?
Johnny A. Light, I was introduced through a friend. He had his own podcast, and I was friends with him personally. And then when Johnny A. Light came on in 15, I said, "Hey, I would love to interview him." He was just kind of started doing public stuff.
Yeah,
I'm good at getting people early before they get big.
that's
Like I've
cool.
had Bobby on. I think Bobby's gonna explode.
Yeah.
I kind of you can tell, who's going to be big. You're
Hmm.
going to do well too. I can tell, and so I've been fortunate to get people kind of on the come.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that's worked well. Don't be afraid to interview somebody that is not big now, but you think may grow into their own. And then number two was just ask, just ask, and then try to approach them with a different angle. You know what I mean? Like what attracted me to your show is invest in yourself clothing. So obviously, like it's like a self-descriptive title. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're gonna invest in yourself? Great. Like I'm trying to invest more in myself. You seem like a good guy. And it kind of like it drew me in. If you were, some random podcast, like, oh, I just want to hear about your story. I don't know, but you drew me in on the name, which is great branding, and you're a great guy, so it kind of worked out.
Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, I mean, I think that's really a great way to, really reach out to people. That's what I've been trying to do, with just, just emailing them, finding their contact information. And, I feel like that's kind of the best way. And, sometimes they'll message back, sometimes they won't. I mean, you
Yeah.
just really never know. But if you don't message them, then, you'll never get a response, you'll never get nothing.
And then once you kind of nail like your bigger gets or your guests,
Yeah.
tend to build off it. You're like, oh, I had Adrian on, I had so and so. And then once like the bigger names are on, then they'll tend to like because they have two
Yeah.
questions: who did you have on, and how big is your audience, right? So
Yeah.
at least if you have some big names, that helps you get more views. And generally they're like, oh yeah, so and so on. Hey, I'll jump on.
Yeah. I've done that before too. Yeah. It definitely does help, especially, where you're stuck where I'm at right now, just a year in. But how do you go about, marketing your podcast?
So I try to. It's funny because I do it for a living, and I spend a lot of time on the interviews. I spend a lot of time with comments. I don't spend a lot of time marketing. So, but I make sure kind of what we talked about with the Jeff and the Dude show when you start to YouTube. I try to have a good title that's optimized so people kind of check it out. I make sure all like the title tags are in there, descriptions there. So obviously, you have a good following, thank God. So hopefully, those guys will check it out, and then from there, hopefully, you'll get discovered. You know, because I optimize it correctly, and then I'll go in on the analytics. Oh man, this is not getting discovered. I'll maybe change the title around or change a thumbnail or add a thumbnail. So, so I try to make it one, hit the group that I have. And then number two is try to get found discovery through good titles, descriptions, that kind of stuff. I'm not very clickbaity. I should do shorts. There's so much more I could do, Adrian. I just don't have the time. And I
Right.
don't make a lot of money doing it too. So it's like I dedicate a lot of time. It literally, I say it's like 1% of my income, but 99% of my headaches.
Yeah.
So I got to kind of grow it a little more, find a way to monetize it so economically it makes sense to spend more time, and
Yeah.
then it'll kind of work itself out.
Yeah, and I'm sure you definitely have a lot, experience, with advertising and stuff like that, So yeah, I think it really would probably impact it a lot more, like if you
Yeah.
had more time to, but it's just about finding the time for it, like you said.
Yeah.
What is like one lesson that you may have learned, through business where you might have got screwed out of a situation
Um,
that you could prevent someone
don't
from
be
else
so
going through?
trusting. Don't be so trusting of people quickly.
Right.
Always validate and go with your gut. That's really like just trust but verify. Is that like as Ronald Reagan said? Trust but verify when it comes to people.
I like that. What did some struggles you went through, that got you to where you are today?
Um, I obviously as an entrepreneur, you're going to have like a lot of economic swings. There might be a month that you lose 20,000. You don't have a choice. You can't interrupt payroll. You got to keep your vendors happy. You got to keep your credit cards on. If you got to dip into your savings for 20,000 to keep your business going for a month, that's what you got to do. So you got to make sure you kind of have like your priorities in place. And then now what I'm trying to do for 2022 is I'm actually trying to delegate a little bit more, and get out of the day to day and focusing on growing the business, growing on sales, and then also for my company, and then also creating some good content with the Armchair. So that's kind of like, it's not easy, because if you do
Yeah.
this for so long, you're like, well, I want them to do it. Well, your controlling nature sometimes kicks in, like, well, I can do it better. No, no, no. You got to trust people, verify, but trust people, and then try to delegate better where you can, and then most importantly, get the right people on the bus.
Yeah. How do you go about, getting the right people, for say for your position?
That $1 million answer. Just have a clear, like, specific job description, and then like give it to them, lay the expectations, have the honest conversation, and then from there measure against that. Like maybe a quarterly meeting, a 6-month meeting, and don't be afraid to have that uncomfortable conversation. Hey, you know what? Like, this is where you're excelling great, and this is areas that you need an area of opportunity. This kind of you got to fix now, and then give corrective action, and then if they hit it, great. If not, then improve or remove, and that's the way you got to do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's, because I've worked, for a company too where, 6 months in, they're like, well, you're not catching up, so we're gonna have to let you go. It's just like, and they were supposed to do a 3-month review, and
That's where, really quick, that's where they might have failed you. So listen,
right.
not every job's going to be the right fit either, right?
Yeah,
Like, you're a
yeah,
smart guy, and maybe you had more of a penchant for entrepreneurship. Now you have to sell some clothes, so you'll podcast, get the name out there, you'll do some PPC, you'll do a little SEO, whatever you do, right?
yeah,
And you have to, right? Because otherwise you don't eat, right?
yeah,
But where if they said, hey, like, in 6 months, this is not the right fit, they really should have had a conversation at 3 months. So let's just say you really wanted to keep that job and you wanted to stay there and you wanted to excel. You need to know you're doing okay. And if you're not doing okay, why is that? So they might have, I mean, judging by, I'm assuming you're representing it correctly, they might have failed you on that one,
yeah. I think it definitely goes both ways, and like, you're supposed to have your 3-month review or whatever, they promise you, and then you never get it. So then 6 months goes by, you're like, yeah, we're gonna have to let you go. It's like, all right, whatever, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But what was kind of your click moment, when you knew you wanted to pursue this, route 10 years ago?
I said to myself, I either going to stay in corporate and I want to run like a business unit and like head up like a division, or even be a CEO of a company if I had that aspiration, or do my own thing. And it's
Right.
obviously easier to do when you do your own thing. So when the opportunity was kind of thrust upon me, yeah, and like I decided to check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you've talked about what are some struggles, that you've had as a, being your own business owner, but what are some, positive things that come from owning your own business?
Flexibility. I have a lot more time with my kids. I have 2 kids from a previous marriage, 12 and 9. I have a 1-year-old, and I have another one on the way. So my
Busy
new
man.
wife, new beautiful wife, and I'm more engaged. I'm here. I'm present. I'm not making like a ton of money. I probably could make a lot more if I was like out and about more.
Yeah.
But like with COVID, it kind of fostered more being inside, which is great. So I get to spend more time with my family, more meaningful time, and I try to do a better job of being present.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a, a great thing, is to have more time for the family, and you, as a business owner, if you're doing well and you can work from home or whatever it may be, you definitely have a lot more time and opportunity to.
Exactly. And again, like, so I'm again not killing it, but I make enough to cover everything, put a little
Yeah.
bit away for the future, and spend meaningful time. So if I could maybe make a little bit more, because economics are hard in New Jersey, the things are very expensive. If I can like kind of cover myself, make a few bucks more, to make sure you have that stability for your family in the future,
Yeah.
and not have to kill yourself doing it, that's a win for me.
Yeah, definitely. How do you invest in yourself? This should be an easy one.
Start. I'm doing more. I'm consuming more content that will help me grow and understand things better. I kind of got back on the Ray Dalio kick. That's why I brought him up. Using the podcast to have conversations that get me to learn, but just investing time in content and consumption of stuff that's going to help me learn and then apply that to my everyday life. So it's no different than people watching my content that I want them to do, but I also do it myself with the content that I consume. My wife got on me a little bit. I was doing a lot of like content that was stupid. I got involved with like some drama. I'll be the first to admit it, but then I realized I'm like, you know what, this is not really good for me. And I kind of went towards the right content that, you know, the content you consume is really reflective of who you are. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what am I doing listening to like two people arguing? Let me go back to Ray Dalio. Let me go back to watching Jordan Belfort. Let me go back to watching Gary Vaynerchuk. I kind of went back to my old school kind of motivational content and learning. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, I agree, you know, with you 100%. You know, whatever you watch or whatever you have around you on the daily is definitely going to be what's going through your head and what's going to be mostly on your mind throughout the day. It's going to be hard to think of any other things, you know, say you're, you know, watching a bunch of negative shit or, you know, a bunch of, you know, meaningless, you know, stuff that doesn't even matter. You don't gain no knowledge from it, or you're just watching the same thing over on repeat. You know, I mean, it's just, you're just going through the same thing every day and you're not gaining anything, and you get into that mindset to where you're not learning anything. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What, where would you like to be 10 years from now?
Ooh, not a spring chicken. So I would be 56. I want at that point for my business or businesses to be at a point where if I have to walk away for a year, they can run themselves. And then I always just want my passive income or I would love my passive income to equal or be greater than my expenses. So if I could do those two things, I'll be happy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that would be, you know, really comfortable, you know, to be able to trust people to run the business and be able to go off and do whatever else you need to do and spend more time on different projects and stuff. Yeah. It sounds like you do got a lot of different
a little baby action in the background.
Oh no, I know. Only got one upstairs too. I don't think it's crying right now, but our last podcast, I got a little crying in it.
It's called ambiance.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say though, it does sound like you have a lot of, you know, different streams of income that you can really go off of. Yep. You know, and
right now I have two businesses, and then one of the businesses has some subsets. And interesting enough is within the C19, I won't say too much because I don't want to demonetize you. That diversification saved my ass. You know, again, you know, could I be a lot more successful if I went like an inch wide, mile deep in like crypto or, you know, or certain things? Yes. But also when C19 hit, the advertising part of our business just crashed. But we had an agency side that we had retainers, and they kept us afloat. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the diversification of the revenue, again, be it not the best margins, not like, you know, hey, I'm making millions, but the fact that I was diverse, when something went to zero, everything else kept us afloat. We did not have to lay anybody off during COVID. It's a proud point of contention. Yeah. We take ourselves serious. So I'm a real big fan of diversification.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask. You know, like it's better to have, you know, different multiple streams of income because, you know, like you said, you never know when something's going to happen. And, you know, did it, you know, like you said, it really helped you during COVID. You know, I mean, a lot of people, you know, might have, you know, had all their time devoted to this one job. And then here it comes, you know, now you can't go to work for a month or two. Now you
I acquired New Jersey Digest. It was a magazine called just a digest. It was at a Hoboken, New Jersey. It was a smaller magazine, physically smaller too. It was like the size of the old Reader's Digest, if you remember. You're young, but then we bought it and we took it over, and then we expanded it to the whole state, New Jersey Digest. And I bought it at a time where COVID hit a few months later. The advertisers dried up, and I put out a big investment to kind of get it. I'm like, ah, crap. And I was really worried for a while. And I had that staff overhead because it's the staff from Digest. But again, luckily we just focused on content. With COVID, I think that traffic went up because people were home consuming content. So now we have it in a better place. It's not really where we need it to be financially, but we're getting there and we're creating some great content. So, you know, you're not in New Jersey. Like, where are you located? If you don't mind.
Oh, Nebraska.
Oh,
right in the middle.
There you go. Omaha?
No, no, Grand Island's a little smaller town.
Interesting. So, but in New Jersey, we're really looking to be like one of the go-to sources for lifestyle, and we're getting
Mhm.
there. So, we have New Theory, we have New Jersey Digest, we have the Armchair, and then we have our agency. And those things together, added up, we make a few bucks.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool that, you really are growing it. And you never know how far it's going to go, so you just got to keep pursuing it, and just watch it grow. Like I said, with that entrepreneur, ness mind, you just really like to watch stuff grow
Exactly.
and be able to be the one in control of it.
Exactly.
What would you tell your younger self if you with the knowledge that you have now?
Oh, great question. Just I always said, like when I started entrepreneur, I almost like oversold things, meaning, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, we're a startup, we don't need to make money, you focus on growth. No, like I wasn't a tech company, I wasn't a something that needed to be reinvested. So what, make money earlier. It's okay, and be realistic about the business you're in. Like I had this fantasy that I was a startup guy and oh man, I'm not making money, but like, oh, but we're growing and we're a startup. No, bullshit. I was an agency, and agencies should make money. We're not going to grow exponentially because we're not we don't have a tech or IP product. And I just wish I was more realistic about um, my game plan. It's okay to make money early. It's going to sound weird, like, well, Tom, that's obvious. No, because I really thought I was in a startup environment. I really thought I was a startup CEO, and I was more of a small business owner, to be honest. So be realistic about who I am, make money earlier, and then I can get back to getting the right people on the bus. And you know what? If you have an inkling they're not the right people, have an honest conversation with them, because more than likely they're just as unhappy as you are, and sometimes it makes the separation a little bit easier.
Yeah. No, that's true, because maybe they aren't happy, with what they're doing. And, you just have to have that conversation and move on. They find something better that they enjoy, and then you find someone that can perform the job better.
Exactly.
Let's see. What was like one of the worst jobs that you have that or had that you would never like to go back to? Or that
Whew.
you
I remember one job. I was in college, but I worked full time. So I went to college full time too, but I went to college at night, worked in the day, and I was like an operator making pharmaceuticals. And like this one job, I had to like watch sludge be made in a centrifuge on like the midnight shift, and it was like crazy. And not that I didn't like doing it. It was great money for the time, but it just was like, you know what, like, is this the right use of my time even at that age? So yeah, watching sludge and making things on a production line wasn't the right fit for me.
Right. And like, coming up, as a college, high school student, you have to find a job that will take you, because it's kind of hard to get in that field that you
Correct.
want to be in because, you're just starting out. No one wants to hire you. You don't have a degree yet, and you're
Yeah.
still going to college, only working part-time. So you're just kind of in a shitty situation. So then you have all this experience with jobs that you're not even interested in at all. You know what I mean? And that's kind
Exactly.
of how it was in my situation, but then now, what's kind of crazy was for job interviews and stuff, after I graduated college, they told me to put that I had my own clothing business and podcast.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I've been, really selling that on a lot of my interviews, job interviews that I've done in person, and they really have liked that and fascinated and interested. And, so I've got the opportunity to do second interviews and also, job offers, so I actually have the control of like which one I want to have, instead of just
Good
having,
for you.
oh, fuck, I need to get into this job, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I need money, but I can
Yeah.
actually have a choice. It's just, it's crazy. I really
I like
never
that.
thought that I could have that. I mean, that's
And
just,
listen, I mean, like, the other thing is like sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, I've never had to. Luckily, I've always found a way to pull myself out, but I never had to like get a regular job to supplement. There were times I almost did.
yeah.
Um, my corporate life, I was in a high earning job. I was like in medical device sales. Easily, you can make $250,000. It's very tempting to go back into that. But the same token is if you have to or want to, that's okay too, especially when your business is early. Maybe the other thing too is don't have an ego. Like if somebody came to me tomorrow and said, "Hey, I want you to make $250,000 in device sales, and I could do it for a year," I probably wouldn't do it, but I would consider it.
Yeah.
But if I wouldn't do it, I wouldn't do it because of ego.
Yeah.
I would do it because it doesn't make sense financially. Because I could make $250,000 more maybe at my business by just going on one more sales call a week for spending those 40 hours, and that's something I could
Yeah.
put people on. but drop the ego. Done it makes it easier.
Yeah, and I agree. Like with you know, spending your time wisely. You want to be in a job to that where you actually are gaining something and where you are learning something that you actually enjoy and like you like doing. You know, like you said when you were in college, you weren't working there. You're like, this is probably not the best I can be doing with my time.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
because you already had other aspects that you really wanted to cover and get.
Yep.
You know, so I mean, like even with a job like that or in a situation like that, you still want to be able to try to find something that you can somewhat apply to what you're trying to do. You know what I mean? And that was hard for me to find that, you know, when I, you know, maybe say, you know, a year ago, you know, but now these opportunities are finally presenting themselves and, you know, it's nice to actually be able to, you know, have these opportunities, you know, and be grateful for them, you know?
Exactly, and be grateful. That's the other part too. Just maybe sometimes stop, take an inventory of your life. Don't get me wrong; things could be better. You might have fucked up and made some mistakes, but if you look at taking inventory of your life, appreciate the good things that you have and the good people you have, because they're always not going to be there. And that's the other thing I learned as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think, you know, we kind of covered everything I was going to ask you, man. Did you have anything else you wanted to add or anything before we ended?
I guess just the other thing is just if you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, just make sure you're relevant. I'm a big digital guy now. I was historically old school, like a flip phone up until like 8 years ago. But now that I adopted digital, just
Yeah.
make sure your business and what you're trying to do is with the right message to the right person at the right time. Just make sure you're in the right relevant space for your business. If you're in your career, maybe be the best at it. Like the other part is I don't like that, like this whole like entrepreneurial movement, right? And then the people that are hardworking people that have great 9 to 5 jobs. Now
Yeah.
you're trading money for time, but that's okay because hopefully you're getting compensated well for it. So make sure you're compensated well. Don't get paid for what you deserve. Get paid for what you negotiate. But my point being is that don't shade people for them having a good, honest job. And then while you're at that good, honest job, make sure you're the best at it and
Yeah.
make sure you're at the top of your field to make sure you're higher earnings because you are giving time for money for maybe to have other people realize their dreams, but just make sure you're compensated for that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because time is, you know, I mean, it's you don't get it back. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's one of your most important things in life. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
you don't get that time back, and you need to know your worth. You know, and that's a shirt that I even made. You know your worth. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I mean, it's a good saying. You know, it's just something you really everybody should do. You know, and whatever job situation you may be in, I mean, yeah, definitely always know your worth. I definitely agree with that, man. Because time you don't get back.
Exactly.
But yeah, you know, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate you taking out the time and talking with me, man. It's been great.
It's my pleasure. Check out the Armchair MBA um, on YouTube. Just type in Armchair MBA. If you're in New Jersey or the surrounding area, type in New Jersey Digest. We'd love to check that out. And then lastly, newtheory.com. So I do a few different things. My messaging probably is not as tight, but we have between those 3 resources, you got a ton of content to be consumed. And more importantly, come in, say hello, subscribe, and we'd love to hear from you.
All right, yeah, definitely, man. I'm gonna check out everything. I mean, I already kind of have, but you know, I'm gonna check out more. But you know what I mean. But for the people that are watching, yeah, go check that out. But yeah, thanks again, man. I really appreciate you and your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you. See.